Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Nick here with Shelf-Esteem. This has been kind of a chaotic weekly update in regards to my music life and my reading life, so let's go ahead and talk about it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Again, I'm Nick here with Shelf-Esteem. This is a Booktube channel made by a film, television, and gaming composer specializing in book adaptations, most recently music on The Wheel of Time, His Dark Materials, and the Brent Weeks Lightbringer official companion album. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my weekly update this week. It's been a little bit scatterbrained, and if you start to hear about my book choices, you'll kind of understand where my mind's been at this week. But basically, if you watched my previous week's update, which I'm going to link up here, I had talked about a couple of books that I had started and I was really enjoying, and I wanted to continue on that vein. Now, I made the mistake, or, it could be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it, but you know how we're always constantly thinking about the next books we want to read. So I had done a book haul video, which I'm also going to link up here, where I talked about one of the trilogies I had purchased at a book sale called the Century Trilogy by Ken Follett. And I just decided to kind of peek in, and just kind of read the first chapter, maybe, because famous last words, right? Because, sometimes it's kind of fun to see what else is on deck, on the horizon. And I've been getting a lot into historical fiction ever since reading Shogun in March. Now, that was a big mistake because I am officially 400 pages into this thing. I just couldn't stop reading it. I mean, it's one of those books where I found myself staying up until 2 a.m., which is unlike me. I'm usually in bed by 11. Just reading this. I can't stop. I have a problem in the best way possible. But this book is called The Fall of Giants, or Fall of Giants, which is book one of the Century Trilogy by Ken Follett. I'd heard such good things about Pillars of the Earth from, channels like Mike's Book Reviews, Red Fury Books, and I kind of wanted to explore some of his other work as well. And for those of you who don't know the Century Trilogy, so there was a book of three. Fall of Giants was the first one. It takes place around World War I. So it features the time period, the countries, and the people at play around World War I, and a fictionalized story, a little bit of romance, a little bit of historical fiction, and that kind of a thing. Now, normally that's not as much my bag. I'm much more of a fantasy, sci-fi, horror kind of guy. But lately I've been getting into historical fiction, and I'm so glad I peeked into this book because it is perfectly paced. It's 1,000 pages long, right? It's pretty massive. But somehow it could be 2,000 pages and I just don't care. And I've heard that about Ken Follett before, so I don't know if that's just kind of part and parcel of his writing. Let me know in the comments if it is, because I would love to know, more about his work, because I'm definitely going to be reading, the Kingsbridge series, which starts with Pillars of the Earth. I'll be reading some of his other stuff, but let me know what I should keep, putting up higher on my TBR list and basically destroying my TBR as often such it goes, right? But so this first book is World War I focused. The second book, which is called Winter of the World, is World War II focused. And the third book is called Edge of Eternity, I believe. And that one is Cold War focused. So different time periods. And I think some of the descendants of the characters from this book are featured in either the second or the third or both. Now, I gotta say, the one thing I really like about this book is I'm always a little wary of romances in books personally. It's just a personal choice, not usually something I like to read, especially in books that lean more YA. I guess it's just kind of my age demographic and things it just doesn't do it for me personally. I mean, I think it's great, and all, but it's just not something that I gravitate to necessarily. So I'm always a little wary about romance in stories, and I always want to feel like it's not shoehorned in, if that makes sense. Now, there's 3 sets of romances going on in this book, which would lead one to believe, okay, come on, do we need to focus on 3 different ones? Even one is a lot, in a book, it can become a big focus, but I am equally invested in each one of these romances. And this is coming from me, it's just fantastically plotted and paced. And literally, I was on the edge of my seat in one particular part where, you see these characters, they're involved indirectly in this conflict that's brewing, right? I'm almost 40% done with this book, and it's just entering in the first stages of World War I. So Ken Follett has really time to develop the writing and the characters. You feel so invested in them, and how lines are kind of drawn in this war, in this impending war, the characters may not necessarily be on the same side of that line. And what would happen to A, their relationships, and B, their futures? So really fascinating book. And from what I've heard, it's very historically accurate. So I'm learning a lot of history along the way. World War I is one I know far less about than World War II. So I'm very excited to see where this journey takes me. So this has been the distraction and kind of has contributed to both my love of reading this week and also my scatterbrainness. So Ken Follett, Fall of Giants. Check it out if you haven't. Let me know if you have in the comments. And kind of continuing on the trend, I had mentioned these two books in the last weekly update, and one of them was a reread or a restart of the series Malazan, Book of the Fallen, with the first book, Gardens of the Moon. So I've gotten about almost 200 pages into this one. So I'm on book 2, I believe. So basically every few chapters, there's like, it's separated into books, like almost sections of a book. And I am absolutely loving it so far. Like, I love this far more than the first time. I feel like my kind of fantasy vocabulary has developed in the 4 years since I first read this and didn't know what the hell was going on, honestly. Like, I didn't know, I just tried to nod my head and watch Mike's book reviews and pretend like I knew what was going on, but didn't know half of what was happening. But the second time, I feel like I'm understanding the characters. I recently started playing D&D with a group of friends of mine, and that has actually contributed to my understanding of certain terms, or just kind of the way of thinking about a story like this. So fascinating book. If you haven't checked it out, Gardens of the Moon is a really, really good read. It is definitely a bit stiffer of writing than kind of his later works, so definitely keep that in mind. But it's like the Dark Tower series, which I'd also talked a previous video about, where the first book is not necessarily representative of the series as a whole, but when you go back to it, you can appreciate it that much more. So I'm really enjoying the ride so far, and I definitely want to continue on this journey. And I think Malazan is going to be unintentionally something I'm tackling for the rest of the year. So I'm excited about that. And finally, I was also digging into, and didn't get much further, but maybe about 50 pages further. So I'm probably on 100 page, like around 150 thereabouts, of Joe Abercrombie's The Heroes. This is the second standalone for you, those of you who don't know, of the 3 standalones he did. So there was Best Served Cold, The Heroes, and Red Country. Best Served Cold is kind of like the Count of Monte Cristo, like a revenge tale. The Heroes is like the whole book is one battle. And it takes place in kind of a different area of this world that Joe Abercrombie has created. And then the Western is called Red Country. It's very much more like a traditional Western. So those are the 3 standalones. I absolutely loved Best Served Cold, and I'm excited to continue on The Heroes. And I gotta say, I'm loving it so far. Joe Abercrombie just has a knack for developing characters and making you care about side characters. And because now this is the 5th book of a 9-book kind of arc, where you had the first Law trilogy, then you had the 3 standalones, and then you have the sequel trilogy to the First Law, making books 7, 8, and 9. So you're kind of 5 books into it now, and you're kind of starting to really understand this world, the characters, the regions, the history, and also the history of the characters and their relationships with each other. So you kind of feel very ensconced in this world. And so I'm excited to see how Joe Abercrombie continues to develop it in terms of also having a book that's so action-packed and battle-oriented. I love battles that are contained. And sometimes, when you think about a battle, it's very chaotic. You don't necessarily know what's going on. It could be disorienting. And Joe Abercrombie captures that perfectly in his writing. And I'm excited to see what he can do in a more long-form version of that battle, where it's not just smaller battles peppered throughout, but a whole battle that takes place in 600-something pages. So excited to continue on this journey. So that leads to, what am I going to read this coming week? So no surprise there. I'm going to be basically digging equally into these 2 books right here, and then Fall of Giants. And I don't think I'm going to finish all 3 of these. So I'm going to try my best to kind of power through and read these. I've been waking up a little extra early to give myself an hour here and there where I can to read. And that's been really helping a lot, both with my mental focus and clarity throughout the day, and hopefully kind of curbing some of the scatterbrainness, but and then also being able to kind of get to my reading goals and keep it fun, so that's something I've been kind of working on, and that's something I'm excited to tackle this coming week. All right, let's talk real quick about kind of the video content I want to do this upcoming week. So, I will always have my weekly updates on Sundays, and they'll be released at 8:15 a.m. PST, Pacific Standard Time. But I'm also going to be doing my top 10 fantasy series that I want to complete. So the reason for this video is basically to hold me accountable, because I have a tendency, as you can tell from these weekly updates, to start a series and then move on to something else, and suddenly I have book 1s or 2s of a bunch of different series. So there's series I haven't started yet, I've always wanted to get to, and there's series that I'm dying to complete, and it's about time I kind of get to those. So I'm going to release a video of that, and I would love to know once I do, if there's ones you believe that I should move up or down on my list. So I'm excited to kind of debut that on the channel. And then I'm also going to do a Stephen King tag video that I meant to do last week, but things got a little bit hectic with some of the other video content, and I'm looking forward to doing that and tagging Jess Book Girl TV here, who was the inspiration for that Stephen King tag, where I answer a bunch of questions about my love of Stephen King. So if you like that kind of content, then definitely check that out. And then lastly, if I have time, I'm going to try to do, it's going to be a little bit more of an ambitious project, so I have to see if I can get to it this week, but I'll definitely have it the following if not. But I'm going to be doing a Stephen King tier ranking video of all the 45 books I've read so far, in anticipation of the You Like It Darker release that's coming out May 21st. So I'm very excited to kind of put that on the channel and kind of see what your thoughts are on the books that I've read and which ones I should read next. So yeah, looking forward to sharing that with you as well. Now, on the music front, I always like to kind of give a music update as well on kind of what I've been working on. And it's been a little bit wishy-washy again, because, things are still slow until the IATSE negotiations, which is the location unions for film shoots. Once they kind of finish their negotiations, which should be end of July, then things are going to pick up again. But I've been doing meetings with various executive producers and kind of talking about specific projects that might be on the horizon. There's some that, have expressed interest on working with me, but it's going to be a while before they start up again. And, I've been working on this game, I think I mentioned to you in the previous weekly update. So that's continuing on, and I'm going to be working on a character theme this week. So I'm very excited about that. And that game is actually very influenced by both Brandon Sanderson's The Cosmere and the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. So that is something I'm really excited to tackle, because, that's the kind of music I've always enjoyed writing and I've always wanted to write. So a game that expresses two of my favorite series of all time in its inspirations is something that is really a treasure. So I hope I'll be able to share more updates with that soon. And other than that, I started training for a half marathon. And as somebody who always has hated running, it's been a really fun experience to try to do something I hate and see how that opens my mind to possibilities I hadn't previously explored. So I've been doing, runs in the morning, and that's been really helping with my focus as well, both on the reading front, on the music front, and kind of the work-life balance. So it's been a really good week, and I'd love to hear more about your guys' week. So please leave it in the comments. Let me know how your week was, both your reading week, your personal week, your creative week, anything you got going on. Let me know. And what kind of books have you been really inspired by? What have you been reading? Is there something that you broke your TBR for that you regret or don't regret? Leave it in the comments and let me know, and let's create a discussion about, what kind of books move us, and maybe we can even read some together. So if you have any recommendations, things you've been wanting to try, I'm always looking forward to breaking my TBR yet again and finding cool people to read books with. So again, I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. Thank you again for tuning in. This is the week of May 12th. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already and you are enjoying these videos and would like to see more. And I look forward to seeing you next week with even more content. In the meantime, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and I'll see you very soon. Take care.